Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Veda and this is The Simple Budget. Here on my channel, I show you how my family uses the zero-based budgeting method in order to simplify our financial life. If that sounds like content that you're interested in, I would love it if you would hit the subscribe button and join our little crew here. And with that, let's get into today's video. Okay, so I just want to preface this by saying, first of all, this is a very rudimentary expense tracker here. I am working on creating my own budget planner, and I am kind of testing sheets out, or different like trackers and pages of it out on myself before I go compiling everything and turning it into a workable product. So that's why this is kind of just a very baseline sort of tracker here until I can kind of work out the kinks and figure out what I think works best. Also, I just want to say that this is because I'm new to cash stuffing. I just had my first cash stuffing video uploaded this week. Some of the process of going about paying myself back for online expenses is not going to be very streamlined because we don't have a build up yet in our envelopes in order to like make change and kind of cover bigger than planned expenses. So this is going to look a little wonky until we get all of those kind of like little details sorted out. But if you bear with me, and again, this is all part of the process of learning with a beginner, because I am a beginner to this. So you'll kind of get to see how I'm going about doing this until our envelopes kind of get beefed up a little bit, and then making changes a little bit easier because we've got the funds allocated toward our sinking funds that make that process simpler. I hope my explanation works out for you or makes sense to you. But I'm also happy to answer any questions in the comments. So feel free to just inundate me with any questions that you may have. Now, also, before I get started, I just want to say that what I didn't mention in my cash stuffing video was that the cash stuffing that I just did was actually for the first half of my husband's paycheck. So he gets paid bi-weekly. I get paid bi-monthly, I think it's called. So I just get paid twice a month. It's on the 1st and the 20th. Or I'm sorry, the 5th and the 20th. So the cash stuffing that I did earlier this week was just the first half of his first paycheck. The second half of his paycheck will be combined with my first paycheck from the month in next week's cash stuffing video. And the reason why that's relevant is because when I go about making online or debit card transactions from cash stuffed envelopes or cash stuffed envelopes, paying myself back is possible because I've got a buffer in the account. Now the buffer, our buffer in particular, is kind of chunky because we do not cash stuff our bills. So our mortgage, our electric bill, our phone bill, all of those things we allocate from each paycheck, but they don't get pulled. So they sit in the bank and kind of serve as a buffer for these transactions that happen that are debit card transactions or online purchases until I can pull the money from the cash envelopes and put it back into the bank to essentially pay myself back. So our bills money acts as like a Ketty. My gosh, guys, English is so hard for me sometimes, I swear. They act as a petty cash buffer, but also because I only cash stuff half of my husband's paycheck at a time, that money is also kind of sitting in there and serving as a buffer as well. And so this is just what works for us. Everybody's situation looks different. And I just want to preface that going into this because I'm not going to be paying myself back for all of the transactions that I list here. I'm just going to, and I'll explain it as I go along just so that you understand a little bit better, but I'm going to, instead of stuffing those stuffing those particular envelopes that I may have overcharged this week, I'm going to just not stuff them next week because that buffer is already sitting in my account because I only stuff half of my husband's paycheck at a time. So let's get into this so that you can better kind of understand all of those words that I just said. And then hopefully it will kind of make sense as I go along. So I'm going to just go ahead and get you guys zoomed in here so that you can kind of see this a little bit better so that you can see what I'm working with. Okay, here we go. So this is for the month of February. And I'm sorry, my handwriting is not, I don't think it's particularly pleasing, but this is just what you're stuck looking at. Okay, so first up, and so over here, my plan is for this expense tracker to cover all of the bases, every single transaction that you have in a month. And so that's why first up I have type. So I put D for debit transaction, then C for cash transaction, because it's important to track your cash transactions. Even though you can very clearly see what's left in your envelope or not left in your envelope, it's still nice knowing specifically where it went. I cannot be one of these people who just like spends the money and doesn't track the expense all willy-nilly. That makes me nervous. So for the purposes of just kind of showing you how I track my expenses, I'm just going to do everything that has happened within a week. And I think that's probably going to be how I go about doing this moving forward. You'll see all of my expenses for that week. So first up was actually on the 4th. And it was, it's going to fall in the debit category because it was a PayPal transaction. And so I'll just do PayPal, Starbucks. This is coming out of our eat out budget, our eating out envelope. And I have a little plus or minus because I'm a person who, like, when I fund my envelopes, I like to track all of that in the expense tracker as well. So this is minus, and it was $15. So that means that I'm going to be pulling $15 out of my eating out envelope, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Next up was also on the 4th. I mean, guys, listen, these purchases kind of go hand in hand because it was a Target purchase. If you're one of these people who can go through Target without getting Starbucks, please tell me how you do that. I would love to know what your life is like and be more like you. Okay, so now this one actually has several different categories. So what I like to do for bank account accountability, so to speak, is to put the entire total here. So that was $73.49. And then what I'll do underneath of it, and you'll notice, I mean, this was a debit transaction, but I'm not going to circle the type yet until we hit up the categories. So I had to come home and do all the math with the receipt and figure out what categories these all come from. So part of it came from clothing. And you'll notice I'm coming down a line. So I'll just kind of cross this out so that I know there were multiple categories that this Target purchase covered. So we had clothing, Partey, because I mentioned to you guys in my previous video that my daughter's birthday is this month. And so I'm planning her little birthday party and all her decorations and all that kind of stuff. And then grocery. So all of it was taken out. And then, so 1277 was from clothing, 3637 was from Partey, and then 2435 was from grocery. So because these are all cash envelopes, well, first of all, it was a debit purchase. These were all debit purchases. So the debit purchase lets me know I have to pay my account back with cash from these sinking fund envelopes. And what I do is round up to the next dollar. So next to it, I'm going to write 13, 37, and then 25. And then this change will just kind of sit in our checking account and just continue to roll over as a buffer. Next up was the 7th, and that was at Trader Joe's. And here's another like fun split. So the total purchase that day was, subtracted, 335.22. Now, part of this was cash that I pulled from my cash envelope, and I was super arrogant in thinking that, the 318 that I pulled from my cash envelope is going to be plenty to cover my grocery trip. And I was wrong. So how I'm going to go about doing this is coming down here and circling the C for cash, because I pulled out 318 cash. And then the rest of it was on my debit card, letting me know that I have to pay my bank account back $17.22, which is I'm just going to round it up to 18. And actually, let me just put little slash marks next to this so that I don't confuse myself or any of the rest of you. And so what I'll do is I'll just draw lines through this so that it's obvious to me that this is all part of the same transaction, and that this was split up 318 in cash and then 1722 in my debit card. So I have to pay myself back from my cash envelopes this money that I debited. Then on the 7th, again, I was at Target. And once again, it was split up into a variety of different categories. So the total purchase, again, and this just makes it easier for me when I see the transaction online on my bank, like on my bank account's website, my bank's website, it's not going to break it down into categories for me, obviously. It's just going to say, hey, Veda, you spent $193.30 at Target. And so then that makes it easy so that I know, okay, we are cross-checking and everything's showing up and it's all copacetic, but then I have to go down and break it into categories for my own personal budgeting needs. So that day was Partey, what we call the Target category in our own personal funds. Now, this is something that happens completely online. We leave this money in our bank account because, as I've mentioned before, we have the Target Red Card, and some of my grocery shopping is done at Target, and we allocate like $100 a month for that, just because it's usually just like little snacks for my kids' lunches, and if they're like running a sale on something, which they were this week, and you'll see that. I like to take advantage of those things. And so this is they're all debited purchases, but this is one that I don't have to pay myself back for because we keep this money in our checking account. Then supplements, because my kids were in need of some vitamin D. And then the household category. So for Partey, it ended up being an even 10. For Target, it was an even 100. The supplements were $19.99. I'll put my little dollar signs here. And $63.31 from household. And supplements are also something that we keep in our bank account, because the vast majority of the supplements that we purchase are from a company called Vital Proteins, and I have like their subscribe and save. So this is just money that I don't have to pay back to that account, because we just keep that money in our bank account. Household is going to have to be paid back, and so I'm just going to round this up to $64. Then we had an Amazon purchase. That's our very last one. And I actually don't have the date here. But Amazon, and it was for $27.89. Because there are different categories, we're going to split this one up to $27.89. And then it was also, it was part of it came out from our miscellaneous fund. And then part of it came out of the birthday parties. So partay. I'm really stocking up for this birthday party. I'm trying to make it super cute. I think this was without tax, and I forgot to include the total with tax on my little cheat sheet off to the side here. But just know that what I'm getting ready to write over here, I know that it doesn't add up to $27.89. 13 ended up coming out, and this is the rounded up number of birthday parties or partay, and then $15 was coming out of miscellaneous. Just so that you understand that I'm not paying myself back. I'm not actually going to pull some of the money out of these envelopes because, like I said, we don't really have a buildup right now in our cash sinking fund envelopes. And so some of these things I'm just going to be cash stuffing less next week. So instead of pulling from grocery, I'm just going to cash stuff less next week. This is not always going to look like this when I do my weekly check-ins. I know this is probably going to be confusing for some of you right now, but I'm just showing you how we're doing this process as we get further and further into doing it this way. It's going to be much more streamlined, but for now, I'm just showing you what we're doing so that you can see there are some kinks to work out, but then it all works out in the end. With that said, let's move on to unstuffing our envelopes so that we can pay ourselves back to the bank. First up, I'm actually going to go into the holiday sinking funds binder because I'll be able to make change with what I'm pulling from here. So I'm going straight back to partay and pulling all 35 from here. Now, I didn't calculate this with you guys for now because I know, and you know, that obviously I am somewhat in the hole from a cash perspective with everything that I spent from birthday parties. I'm actually $25 short of all the expenses for the birthday party, but it is supposed to be getting funded. In addition to this money that I stuffed on Monday, it's supposed to be getting funded next week and the week after. And so instead of cash stuffing the party envelope next week and the week after, I'm just not going to do that. And it will pay us back because, again, we have the buffer in there of all of our bills. And so that will kind of cover, as long as I don't go over for the month, that's our general rule. That kind of covers what I spend if there's any overage from week to week. I understand that that's a real risky discipline issue or a potential issue, but for us it's not because despite the $58,000 of debt that we have. I'm actually really disciplined when I set my mind to something and focus on it. So I know I'm not going to go over for the month and go crazy on her birthday party. This is just kind of how we're doing it now until we build up all of these funds a little bit more and we have like more cash in it in order to make up for, when we do have a birthday party. We didn't have months and months to stuff and plan for this. And so we are kind of living like paycheck to paycheck for this particular envelope this month, just because we've only been stuffing or zero-based budgeting for 2 months. So again, I know this is super rambly. I'm just trying to explain to you why it's okay that I spent more here than I have here. It's because we've got that buffer in the account and we have planned to fund this envelope enough this month to cover more than what I paid for here. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and put this back here. So 35, and then I think that was it out of, because I'm not pulling from gifts or anything like that. Yeah, no, we're good. Okay. Then we can go into low priority sinking fund. Of course we're not in frame. Okay. Dates, home. Come on, guys. I know eating out is in here. There's no way that I have that in a high priority sinking fund. If I did, you're all allowed to mock me relentlessly. Because eating out is most certainly not a high. There we go. Dine out. Oh, that's why. It's because I am calling it something different. Okay. So we spent 15 from this. So I'll take out this 20 and replace it with this janky looking 5. So now we have 15 left in dine out. And then onto our high priority sinking funds. Again, we're going to be pulling, let me just go straight back to households, because we're going to be pulling everything from here. Because, and again, I recognize that I'm in the hole here technically, but this envelope is, but you can't see. I mean, guys. Okay. This envelope is going to be getting funded. So I spent 64, but that was because Target was having a sale on household products. They were having a deal where if you buy 3 of like a certain combination of products, you get a $10 gift card for your next purchase. And so I knew that this month I was going to be funding this envelope enough to cover this total cost. And so in future weeks, I will just not be stuffing this envelope to pay the bank account back from this purchase, but it will be getting all 20 that I did stuff in here. And then let's see. Okay. So clothing, I spent 13. I can't quite make cash back. You know what? I'm gonna hold off on paying back with the cash in the envelope, because I know that we are actually stuffing this again this month. And because we're still new to this, I don't have the change available to make change for this envelope. So I'll just subtract this from what I'm gonna stuff next week. So there's that. And then I'm also applying that same logic to groceries. One, because I don't have the change to make for it, but also because I'm just gonna pull from, instead of stuffing the full amount that I was planning to stuff next week, I'll just pull from that. And last up is miscellaneous, which I think is actually over here. Hang on. Oh, you know what? Miscellaneous is actually, so I did stuff this, but then I put it in my wallet. I will be right back. Okay, so I have returned with the $15, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm really happy to get rid of this $10 bill and give it back to the bank, because he's just, oh gosh, he's so sad looking, isn't he? Okay, oh gosh, that doesn't even. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and put a check mark next to all of the expenses that I did go ahead and pay myself back with. So I did pay back the Starbucks purchase from eating out. I did not pay back clothing. I sort of paid back party and all the different party expenses that I had. So what I'm doing with this is I will add up all 3 birthday party expenses, and then I paid $35 that I had funded in the envelope, and then I'll just add that up and then subtract what I've already paid and then subtract what's left from future cash stuffings. Again, if this is confusing to you at all, please don't hesitate to ask me questions in the comments, because what makes sense in my brain may not make sense to you. And if you're new to this, like I am, you may want a deeper explanation into how I've gotten where I'm going. So what I'm going to do is just put an asterisk next to all of the party expenses, because I'm going to know there's more math work that has to be done here. And actually, I've already done the math work. I do have a budget planner that I use that doesn't like completely fulfill my needs, which is why I'm not using it on camera. And it's so much sloppier than this because I have been like doing all of the adding and subtracting and all of the craziness that I have going on here. Then I paid back the miscellaneous expense here, and I pulled all of the money from household, but again, we still have a remaining deficit that I'm going to have to pull from future stuffings just from this month. I don't recommend spending more than you allocate yourself in a month, because that's just a dangerous practice anyway. Our plan is, if you're going to go over 1 week, just make sure that you're not going over more than what you're funding yourself that month for that envelope. So that's why I'm not as nervous about going over, because we still have more money coming into this envelope this month. So I paid back miscellaneous, I paid back party. Household has to be addressed further. Supplements is already online, and so is Target, so that I don't have to pay back. Grocery is another one. I won't stuff as much next month for the grocery purchases that I either debited or went over in the account. So that covers everything on this sheet. And so then to the bank, I am going to be depositing today a total of $20, $40, $60, $70, $85 to pay back some of the expenses that I either debited or made online from this past week of expenses. So I hope I didn't confuse you guys. If I did, I'm so sorry. But again, please don't hesitate to ask me any questions in the comments. I'm happy to answer anything, because we're all in this together. If you're new like me, we're learning together. And if you're not new, maybe I'm just entertainment for you and you're laughing at me. Or you can share some tips and tricks for how you guys do it in the comments as well. Those are always welcome. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you for watching this video. And again, if you're not subscribed, I would love it if you would. And then I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day. Bye.